on tandem and solo storytime videos, including reading notes. So here I, Tanis, she, her, hers of Seattle, ruminate about an approach for myself to tandem and solo storytime videos, including talking through examples for my blood pressure, cardiology, self-experimentation, and reading notes. So kind of taking story time, which I've done for like weekend Wednesdays and in general, and kind of being like tandem, meaning like with another, so as part of a pair, and then also solo. I mean, I've done solo. So is there, in terms of like sharing the video space for my channel and hosting somebody in story time, kind of concepts on my channel that might kind of be a good fit for me in hosting, but also in like adding value to having tandem and solo story time videos. So like I could tell a story, but then we could also tell a story together and see kind of the nature of storytelling. So it's a little bit of a, I guess, a language pondering, as well as kind of like the economics of this YouTube channel. And so then I was like, okay, well then, what topics, since it's that angle, this is about hosting, what could I host in, kind of like we have a story outside of the video, and then we can draw on our experience to tell a story. And so I decided to kind of highlight my blood pressure cardiology self-experimentation. So cardiology is study of the human heart and corresponding blood system, and one of the areas I do self-experimentation in that is blood pressure. So this is one. So my blood pressure cardiology self-experimentation, perhaps a pickup line / approach for moving me in with him, my Josh. Good to have out of house medical documentation in my name at the multi-year level already done. So this is tandem and solo storytime videos to tell the daring tale. So thinking through my blood pressure cardiology self-experimentation, maybe there's something like he's getting going, and just kind of talking about like I'm moving in with him, and maybe like we do like morning one, a blood pressure measurement like he does for me, to kind of be like, I want to start my own journey and I want to do this. And like, so then kind of like I go, okay, can I separate, if he's including me, then can I separate that out in a solo video without like identifying information, being like, can I abstract it? And you're like, but what about him? Well, then maybe we do a tandem video, right? So like kind of working on my basic communication skills, of like, you know, could I actually do that? Figure out how to abstract that the person, but then also, which then allows, you know, opens up the space for me to include themselves without kind of being redundant. You got to hear about how I abstract things, especially if I were to publish in a peer-reviewed journal. I can't put personal info or identifying information in the article. And then you guys get kind of like to see like, this is the professional take or me trying to figure it out. And then here's both of us. So this is one I was like, this is a great, I thought it was like, in terms of like, he shows up so at the door and is like, and you know, I've brought him up in conversation a number of times in 2024, 2025, 2026, with my parents I resided with, Susan and David and Susan. And then when I gave them a card with his name signed, written / text format, my dad I resided with David, said, "Who is Josh?" And this is after years of, you know, me bringing him up a number of times. So I was like, so he shows up at the door, and you know, even with me talking about him, even with the card saying 40th wedding anniversary to mom and dad signed, and he was on the card, you know, and opens the door and he goes, who are you? You know, okay. He's made his tone clear. He doesn't like that. We're like, what's the pickup line in that case? And I was like, how about something that we have, since he's going that approach, if he goes that approach, you know, bring up something where I have documentation. So if there's legal problems, right, which the mom I live with, Susan, has invoked in the past, it's like, okay, so then let's go with something legal I have, which would be doctor's records. So let's do like blood pressure. So, and which he wants to work on anyway, my Josh. So then he goes, oh, I'm Tanis's friend, which he is. We've tried to bring him into my life before, and that's when after I told Susan that my mom I resided with prior to that, so I was living in Albany, California, without either of them at the time. She called the police on me after I said I had a boyfriend, right? So they're trying to bring my soulmates into my life. The immediate escalation was, police force. She's having hallucinations. She might be seeing a guy. And they're like, yeah, just so you know, you're gonna have to get married. Do we have to get married when moving in together? Just to neutralize a call to the police. Oh yeah, well you guys don't really have jurisdiction. Her husband does, right? So, and Elvis Presley in the grave doesn't necessarily help us in that. So like I proposed night one, just to be like, so if/when Susan calls the police. Does that make our tale? All right. So that kind of stuff is like being like survival level, perhaps blood pressure, since we were already thinking of doing that, we're already runners anyway, incorporating that in, but then being like, we already have all of this history, right? Does that come up? Like we already have a lot, like I'm talking a lot. This is solo. Well, what about with him in it? Once we've shown up, oh my gosh, was it just as like it happened without him even present? Was it like, you could say is it that predictable, but did we prepare accordingly? It'd be perhaps more like Susan and David have made their tone clear. Right, they don't necessarily want to see me be happy with my guy because they perhaps want me to live with them instead, kind of thing. So does this make our story time? Perhaps a repeated approach by the dad, even in person with Josh, because in his mind, I should always live with him. Does my mom, I resided with Susan, as in I resided with when I brought him up in conversation these past few years, a number of times. Susan called the police on me like she did after I said I had a boyfriend when I was living in California. Perhaps her attempt to break us up then and now, because in her mind, I should always live with her. I'm being serious. They've already done these things. They have proven track records. I'm trying to accommodate their requests in such a way that I still want to be alive, right? So perhaps kindness is a foreign concept to them, or perhaps they have like an American-made type of kindness, but that's a little bit, I am American. All right. So there's that as well. I just mean kindness should be foreign. I would hope they'd want to see me be happy and be happy with my guy, but perhaps that's just not in them. It's not their strain of kindness, if they have any. It's not their kind of kindness or their kinds of kindness. And so there we go. So like that whole storyline of how we actually made it work after I was living outside of the house and they called the police on me when we tried this when I was living in California. I'm living with them now in Washington State and we're trying to make it happen and they're still not like even, they're still denying his existence. So it's like, there's backstory. Multiple states, multiple counted decades, the 2010s, 2020s, living outside, like not with them, living with them. It's a journey, and then blood pressure is one where I have documentation outside the house that we could invoke medical records if need be. It's my blood pressure, my reading, my name, my face, my experience, not theirs. So if we need to make sure we bring up the right storyline so we can jam them legally, including if we need to get married, just so that I can live my life without them calling the police on me just to harass me and make me miserable. Then we get married. Am I proposed? If he says yes. Is he going to beat me to it? I got some drive. And I got history in that category of proposing to men in person. All right. Not on the same level though. There's and not audibly in person level. All right. And then another one, reading notes. Perhaps do a standalone video for this one in addition to my mentioning here. It is getting a little long. So that's such as reading the Odyssey by Homer or the Iliad by Homer with my Papa Craig, birth dad, if I'm adopted, and Papa Craig's my birth dad. Then that finding a place for nautical in my life, including with my Papa Craig. That'd be very cool. Can we, Tandem and I solo, turn a non-solo reading discussion into a storing time? Yeah, so essentially maybe I should do a standalone on that. Reading the Odyssey with a non-solo approach. So we read a book together and we have discussion and then we turn it into a story time format. And then I tell a story time about our discussion, but then we tell a story time to see to work on especially if I go to graduate school and including my birth dad on that journey of being so he and I had a discussion, and we can tell that story, but then how would I talk about that like to you guys, and would that be different than if I'd like brought it up with my advisor or something like that? So in that sense, including you guys and including my dad, but in a graduate school journey, really like trying to figure out how to just talk about a text as well. So there we go. That's on tandem and solo storytime videos, including reading notes.